Welcome to A Parent's Guide to Child Development. I'm your host, Annamarie von Firley from Fledgling's Flight. Each podcast, we strive to give parents the tools they need to help their child thrive through conversations with experts in child development and psychology, where you can learn about the most important information that you didn't know existed. For most birthing people, the postpartum period is a time of elation, exhaustion, relief, and repairs. However, not all people have a good postpartum experience. I was one of those mothers. On today's episode, we'll talk about how to prepare for an exhilarating postpartum experience. We're joined by Gabrielle Rose, birth and postpartum doula, an Ayurvedic practitioner, founder of the Holistic Doula, with over 12 years of experience guiding families through birth and beyond. Gabrielle sings a rare blend of modern experience and ancient wisdom to postpartum care. She's here to share how we can better support new mothers, empower caregivers, and rethink what it means to truly nourished families. Welcome, Gabrielle.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. I'm so excited.
Fantastic. Well, I think we should just dig in. And let's start off by finding out, what is a doula?
Yeah, so I get asked this question often when I tell people what I do for a living. So the short condensed version is basically a doula is someone who does not have any formal obstetric training in any way. We come in and we provide emotional support, physical support, a lot of education throughout birth for a new mom or a seasoned mom, as I say, and beyond versus, into postpartum. So we spend a lot of time really dealing, I think, more with the emotional side and the education side, whereas midwives really focus on mom and baby. I'm there specifically for mom. So that's really what doulas do. And it's an incredibly sacred piece of work that we are involved in as doulas. And it's a wonderful, wonderful field to be in.
Is one of the jobs of a doula to advocate for the mother on the behalf of the mother?
So this is a really tricky question because a lot of people would say yes and a lot of people would say no. In my personal answer, I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say no because what I do is I teach you to advocate for yourself. So through that, I'm helping you with all of the education prior to birth, and I'm helping you come up with a plan that feels right for you. And then in those moments, if you're having any kinds of doubts, if you're dealing with, maybe a provider in that moment who isn't being supportive, I will then come in and remind you of your preferences for you to make the decision. And keeping in mind at that point, a mom might say, I've changed my mind and I don't want to do what I said, or we've had to pivot. And you kind of roll with that. So I think a lot of people, might comment on that and say that they don't agree or they do agree. It's kind of a tricky answer. I think people will, I think, yes, you do advocate for your clients, but also we recognize, especially if you like what you do and understand what you do, we recognize the importance of collaboratively working with the nurses, the doctors, the midwives. And it's not so much an experience of, either or, like the doctor is ahead of the doula or anything like that. It's more of just we're all here for the same common goal, and that's for her to make her experience the best that it could possibly be. And that's what we're all hired to do. Her obstetrician, her midwife, myself. So yeah, we just prepare a lot beforehand in advocacy. And I teach you how to advocate for you, how to say no, how to say yes, what you can say no to, what you don't want to do, all of that.
Oh, thank you. That was
Yeah.
very enlightening. So many people associate doulas with home births and birthing centers. Can doulas be a part of a hospital birth?
Oh, absolutely. I've done hospital births. They are obviously much different. I've actually been at a C-section as well, which was a really interesting experience. It was the only one I've ever been to. It's obviously very different than vaginal birth. But really interesting experience to get to be a part of. And I was very, very grateful for that experience. Also for my client as well, to have me there and to have somebody kind of only focused on her, where everyone is focused on, the baby and the mom, but the health of, and no one's really taking into consideration, she is strapped down to a table. She cannot move. She cannot see anything in front of her. That curtain comes really all the way up to her neck, and she really is limited. And so, her husband or her partner is there kind of holding her, but that person is also scared. So having someone in that room being able to hold her hand is vital. So yes, absolutely, doulas can go to hospitals. There are some providers, and I talk about this all the time. There are some providers who are not supportive of that. There are some providers who are supportive of that. My advice is find the provider that makes you feel supported. And that's something you'll hear me say a lot throughout this, because that is the number one thing, is that your provider, whether it's an obstetrician or a midwife, should be the person that you feel so comfortable with and so happy with. And of course, with the doula as well, like 100%. Everyone should be aligning. And we know that that's not really the case, but yes, absolutely. Doulas can go to hospitals. We go anywhere. Whatever happens, happens. And I will also say, because I didn't say this in your first question about what is a doula, we do not deliver babies. So anyone who says that doulas can deliver babies, please run away. Please do not. Please, it's such a liability. We do not deliver children. And I always make the joke that, I have enough knowledge that if I needed to, heaven forbid, ever be in that situation, I would hope that I would be okay as I'm on the phone with 911. But I never want to be in that position. And of course, I'm prepared for it, but it does not mean that doulas deliver babies. Please hear me when I say this.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, but what roles do doulas play in the postpartum experience?
Ah, that's the best time ever. The snuggly newborns and the newborn baby smell. That's amazing. So what we really do is we come in to support mom. And the motto that I have in my business is I hold the mom so she can hold the baby. And that's really the biggest focus. I'm not there to hold the newborns, although I do, right? But that's not really what I'm there for. I'm there to make sure that she has everything that she needs, whether that's taking care of the baby laundry, setting up the nursery in some capacity. A lot of postpartum doulas do cook. So cooking is a huge part of it, making sure that she has the right meals. If she's breastfeeding, pumping bottles, kind of facilitating all of that. And then really sometimes too, a lot of it is just a listening ear. I know in my experience, like the way that I work, I'm there usually 4 hours. That's usually like a pretty standard shift for a postpartum doula. And there have been times I've gone and baked a batch of breastfeeding cookies and then talked in the kitchen for an hour over tea. And sometimes people don't necessarily view that as work or view that as important, but it is important because she needs that in that moment. She needs someone outside of her husband, her partner, her mother-in-law, her mom, her aunt, who's giving her all this unsolicited advice, and for someone to just really see her. So I think it can vary. I mean, the doulas and postpartum experience can be a litany of things, truly, but we really come in to hold mom, and I think that that's the most important thing, and it's lost. It is so truly lost on so many people about it. I think that we get so caught up in wanting to see the baby, and I don't think that it's malintended. I really don't. But I do think we don't talk about, like, she just had a baby. Like, we have to focus on her right now. And we will, the baby's great, but she can take care of the baby, pending, obviously. There's no any issues, complications, PPD, PPA. So yeah, we come in and just really hold her, which is a beautiful, amazing thing that we get to do.
And I needed a doula when I had my baby. I can tell you that much.
Everyone does. I really everyone needs it, should have a doula. I think it's just it fosters community, and I think it fosters, a sacred type of, I don't know, sisterhood, womanhood, whatever it is. Like, it just fosters a lot of community, and I think we are lacking that. And I'm sure we will talk about that at some point in this podcast.
No, I agree. And also I think that you're right. At least from my experience, I feel like, once the baby's out, the mom is oftentimes pretty much forgotten, about they're like, oh, yeah, live birth, so hooray, and job is done. So
Yeah. And job is really just truthfully beginning. And there's a lot that goes into it, especially, I know we talked about, and I've told you that I specialize in Ayurveda. So I think there's a lot there as well. That's what we should be following, and we don't. Um, and it really is something that really has become such a passion for me, because I see it all the time, day in and day out. And as my work as a nanny and, everything that I've done prior to this work, I've worked in family homes for a very long time. So doing this, I've really seen the ins and the outs and the behind the scenes. So I can tell you that, yes, we all need doulas and we all need help always. So
Well, you specialize in Ayurveda. So, for those who are not familiar, what is it?
So is my favorite question. So Ayurveda is this ancient Indian medical system, and it's estimated to be somewhere between 3 and 5,000 years old. We don't really know based on the ancient texts. And what it focuses on as a whole, outside of birth and postpartum, it's this I don't want to say idea, but it's this system of working with you as the individual, working with your own constitution. In Ayurveda, it's known as a dosha. And it's about working with each dosha, there's three of them, and in different systems of your body to really promote overall healing, not just a band-aid on something, not just a pill for something. It's about what is the problem, what cell is the problem coming from, what system, the integumentary system, the digestive system, where is it coming from, and what can we do to mitigate that and get rid of it and then have you be back at homeostasis. And it's a really a beautiful way of living. And the ancient texts of it really speak highly of how we're supposed to operate as a people. And there's a lot of nuance to it, I will say, because I think, obviously with time and advancements and things, certain things necessarily don't apply. For example, in Ayurveda, it's not really common practice to eat meat, and they promote a very high vegetarian diet. As an Ayurvedic practitioner, I do emphasize the importance of eating meat within making sure that it's raised the right way, making sure that you're eating it from the right farmers, things like that. But I do think it's very important. So there obviously is nuance, but overall, it is just a way for you to find inner balance and inner peace and really live in harmony with nature. That's another huge point of Ayurveda, which we do not do. Unfortunately, we do not do.
Yeah, that's true. So, can you walk us through what Ayurveda teaches about the postpartum window and how it differs from what we typically see in Western care?
Yeah, so Ayurveda, the main sentence, the main slogan or mantra of postpartum care is the first 40 days for the next 40 years.
Mm.
What that really means is we put an emphasis on those first 40, it's really 42 days, but those first 6 weeks. The reason for that is because, and now I'm going to get a little scientific with Ayurveda, so stick with me. But
Mm.
the reason for that is because when you are pregnant, when a woman is pregnant, she is filled with all of this kapha energy. So remember how I said about the doshas? So we have three: vata, pitta, and kapha. Vata correlates to air and space. It correlates to certain elements in our physical world. So vata is going to be air and space. And what that correlates to in terms of, let's say, health issues in the body is a lot of dryness, a lot of anxiety, anything to do with nervousness, nervous system disorders, anything related to that. Pitta is going to correlate to anything. Well, first, I will say pitta is fire and water. So a lot of heat. So think anger issues, think upset when it comes to digestive issues, a lot of like acid reflux, a lot of burping, all of those kinds of issues will present with pitta. Now, obviously, there's a million more. I'm giving the most basic examples. And then with kapha, it's correlated to earth and water. And so within kapha, you have very heavy, very dense, very stable type of energy, very grounded, right? That earth energy. So very, very grounded. And because it has that water element, that then translates to pregnancy. So when a woman is pregnant, she's filled with this huge belly and it's surrounded in water. And she's extremely grounded. She's creating life. She's growing new life. If we think about earth as a whole and growing life from the ground up, from the dirt, from the soil, that is what a woman is really doing. It's beautiful. It's amazing. When she gives birth, she is now left with this huge space. And you had children, you had said. So, after you have a baby, you kind of feel your belly, and it's this like weird feeling of just like there was something in here, but now there's nothing. And it feels so like a squishy ball. So, you have all this space in there. And the way that we close that space and we close that gap is we're going to then bring in earth and water, and we do that through food, we do that through herbs, we do that through certain rituals like abhyanga, which is like a type of oil massage. So we call in a lot of that. Now the difference between what I just said and western care is that western care doesn't care.
Yeah.
There's Western care does not care. There is no, maternity leave. There is no focus on even a couple of days after birth, what you should be eating even. And it's truly no judgment whatsoever. It's, but the first meal after you give birth, shouldn't be a smoothie. Shouldn't be anything cold, shouldn't be anything raw, like raw salads, raw foods, anything like that. And on just a more, I think, surface level, we don't put an emphasis on any type of care for women. We don't have maternity leave. We don't focus on anything. So I think the major difference is pretty obvious, honestly. It's pretty in your face at this point, and it's unbelievably sad. I mean, it's debilitating for our moms. It's really just heartbreaking.
Yeah, I know when I've traveled to other countries and heard about like in Slovakia, they would get 2 years that the government would pay for you to take care of your child. And not only that, but then they would send out like a nurse that would come and check in on you like every couple of weeks to make sure that you're okay. And I'm just like, oh my God, like
Mm.
we don't even get time off. Like
You don't even get
you need
like
to take
you don't
vacation days to give birth.
yeah.
So
And if
yeah.
you run out of them, you're SOL. So that's it. And so I always use the phrase that, they here in the West, they want us to work like we don't have kids and have kids like we don't work. And you can't have everything that you want, especially when it comes to raising children. And that's not to say if women want to work, they can. There's no, it's not really reflective or indicative of if a woman wants to work, has a career, whatever. It's just more about if you have a child, there is a transition that you go through from maiden to mother, and you cannot ignore that, and you cannot outsource that. And that's not something that can be bought, paid for, put to the side. It happens. And I think a lot of women truly suffer from postpartum depression because of it. And I think because we don't honor it, we don't talk about it, we are expected to bounce back. We are expected to look the way that we looked. And, we go from this thing of, oh my God, it's so beautiful, a pregnancy, a shower, you look amazing. And then you have a baby. And then a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, it's, wow, she really let herself go. She's not in the gym. She's not working out. She's not this. She's not that. She's not who she was before becoming a mom. It's impossible to go back. The cells of that baby and we know this through science, are embedded in the mother forever. That is the nature of what we do and when we have children. So just by that alone, you can't be the same person. You're a different person. There is something fundamentally different about you. And I think that if we pay a little bit more attention and we honor that a little bit more, I think that we'll find a lot less of postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety and things like that. I think that you would see a very large decrease with it. Obviously, that's my opinion, but
Well, I think having an oil massage after giving birth is a good start to not having postpartum depression.
yeah.
You know what? How much of the postpartum depression is because you don't have time off, and because that there is no focus on the mother and the mother's well-being. I mean, I had a terrible birth experience, and I was working, and yeah, I had very little support, which is terrible. But and I also feel like I had undiagnosed postpartum depression, which I didn't even have a name for because we don't talk about it, right? So it wasn't until I talked to another person, another mom who had a traumatic birth experience, and she talked about having PTSD. And I was thinking, like, oh, that's for soldiers. Like, that's for like first responders. That's not for giving birth. And she's like, no, it totally is. And that really sort of like opened my eyes. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I think that, I mean, I was, well into having a child at that point, but for me that was sort of an awareness that I didn't have before, that this is a word for what I'm experiencing, because before that it was like I'm just recovering from all the illness that I had from, postpartum, or I'm just really tired because I've been pumping every 90 minutes since I gave birth and I've had no sleep. And so um yeah, anyway, off on a tangent there.
Oh, I mean, that's what I do. Part of what I do is I just listen to women all the time. I really do. I just listen to their stories, and I could be at an event, I could be at the grocery store, and I tell people what I do. And without fail, every single time, it's a conversation around either a beautiful story of having a doula, which is not as common as I would like, um, women just telling me, their stories, and I'm able to hold a lot of space for that because I think it's important. I really do. And I think a lot of women don't get to say the things. And that's why I think having a doula, being a doula, one of the biggest things is you have to know how to sit and hold space. And I always say, this is not work that we do because we're trying to climb a corporate ladder. We're trying to, make the most amount of money. Sure, of course, we want to get paid for what we love. Absolutely. 100%. But there is also another component of this, and that component is very heavily focused in energy work. So if you are not called to this work in some way, I don't recommend it. And I say that to people, and there are people who, I've heard of friends who were thinking about becoming a doula. And I just say in my head, I'm like, I don't know if you really understand what that means because you have to put your own emotions, your own self to the side when you are doing this work. And that can be very difficult.
Mm.
That can be very difficult for a lot of people if they don't know how to work with their own energy, if they don't know how to deal with that before and after working with a client. And also not allowing your own personal bias to influence that in any way. So, I talk a lot about that. That's a big one that I talk a lot about because it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And we need to be aware of that. You need to just know yourself and you need to know what you're capable of. Because if you know what you're capable of, you can show up for your clients in a way that actually serves them. So, yeah.
And you've supported families for over 12 years. How did your work as a nanny evolve into becoming a doula with a focus on Ayurveda?
So it's a very funny story. So I started babysitting when I was 13. So, and I'm 31 now. I'm almost 32. And I just have always loved kids. There was no world in which I didn't love kids. And for so long in my early 20s, I tried to get away from this work. I tried to push it. I was like, I'm going to go be a corporate girl boss. I'm going to do all the things and climb an invisible ladder. And I always knew that I was an entrepreneur. I always knew that that was something in me. I didn't have a word for it, but I knew that I wasn't meant for that life, but I still kept trying to make it fit. So fast forward to 2018, I was in Hawaii and it was a very pivotal trip for me in my life. I was 24 and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had just no direction. I was very confused and I hadn't even finished my bachelor's. I graduated, I had a couple of credits and I put it to the back burner. I said, nah, I don't really care about it. I'll deal with it when I have to deal with it. And so I'm in Hawaii and I'm kind of on this like soul journey. And I'll never forget, I was on the side of a mountain driving along in Maui and I had pulled over and I remember thinking to myself, I think I want to be a doula. It was the most random thought I ever had in my life. And I happened to be on my phone at the same time and I saw an ad for my graduate degree in integrative medicine and Ayurveda and it was a Master of Science degree and I said, this is what I want to do. And it couldn't have been any more of divine intervention if I tried. And I said, I'm going to finish my bachelor's. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I didn't actually start. This was 2018. I didn't start until 4 years later with my degree. And then subsequently after that, becoming a doula and being in this work. I think it was something that just always was in me and something that was always there. I think I have a very deep connection to children and to moms and to parents, and it just works for me. And I adore children. I know how to speak to them. I understand their language. I understand that kids are not mini adults. I need everybody that is listening to hear this. Children are not mini adults. They do not possess the wherewithal for emotional regulation, no matter if you think they're 3 and, oh, you're a big boy now, you're a big girl, you should know. They are babies. And it gets a lot easier to be around kids and to watch kids and to be a parent when you understand children. A lot of people go into parenthood and they don't understand kids. And so I think for me, this whole thing was so natural. I mean, there's videos of me when I'm a baby. I'm probably 3, 4, Christmas at my uncle's, and my cousin had a baby and she was bringing him in, and there was 50 of us there. It was a big Italian Christmas, and I am just on the camera. You can see me by the door and I'm staring at the door and I'm waiting for him to come in. And everyone in the background is like, look at her. Like, I can't believe she like wants to. And all I wanted to do was hang out with the baby and hold him and be near him. And I just have always been that way. I've just always been I just love kids and I love what I do. And I think it just evolved so much from there. But Hawaii was really that trip where I said to myself, I think that this is it for me. And, from there working in family homes and seeing all of it. And, it called to me in a way that I could never explain fully. And now here I am. I graduated and now I do this work and, now teaching others how to do this work and how we get into that and why that's so important and all of these different things. So it's been a really fun evolving, I will say.
Well, that's a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Glad I brought you here today for this
Thank you.
conversation.
Me too.
So, what are some of the most common misconceptions new mothers have about postpartum recovery, and how do you help reframe them?
I think, I mean, I can't say for certain, but I think a lot of moms think that it's just going to come easy and come naturally. And for most, it does. But I think for some, it doesn't. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad mom because it doesn't happen immediately. I think they grossly underestimate the fact that that baby will be awake. And if that baby is sleeping for 6 hours, if you're a mom, please listen to me, especially if you're having your first baby. Your baby shouldn't be sleeping 6, 7 hours as a newborn. That is not normal. Babies need to wake up to eat, and them waking up also drastically reduces the risk of SIDS. That's not to scare you. That's to let you know what is biologically normal. Is biologically normal for a newborn to wake up every 2 to 4 hours. That's all. I think a lot of women don't, I don't want to say they don't understand that because I think we know that, but they always want to be the exception to it. Um, I think specifically with birth, I know you said about postpartum, but I will say a lot of first time moms, think they're going to be the unicorn and have an 8 hour labor. And, just statistically speaking, first time moms, their labors are over 24 hours. And, it's just a big misconception. Now, of course, do unicorns exist and do they have babies in a couple of hours? Of course, there's nuance to everything, of course. But I think we need to really understand when you go into postpartum recovery that this is not a time to just bounce right back and everything's going to be great and we're just going to be ourselves again. I think that is what really puts you in that space in your mind where you start to get depressed, you start to get upset because you don't know who you are. So, preparing mentally and spiritually and emotionally for the role that you are about to take on is completely misunderstood, is not talked about, is not paid attention to. So for me, if I'm going to work with a postpartum client and I'm coming in before, because usually I prep with them a little bit before, whether it's 1 or 2 times, I talk about that. And I'll even recommend books. I'll recommend certain, even podcasts or whatever it is, even certain Instagram accounts. And I really talk about that because I need you to reframe that in your mind that you are not the same woman before you had the baby. You're not somebody else. And both are beautiful, both are amazing, both are needed. But we don't really pay a lot of attention or pay any honor to what it looks like to go through transitions. I mean, we did it as children, right? We went from being kids, you get your first period, and now you're a teenager, and then your family makes this whole big deal about it. And oh my God, she's a woman, right? It's this whole thing. The same transition happens when you decide to become a mom. The same thing will happen to you again when you go through menopause. This is known as the five blood mysteries of women. And these are things that can't be explained, but they happen. And we don't pay attention to it. We are a country that is obsessed with youth, a culture, I should say, really. We're obsessed with youth. We're obsessed with everything being youthful. And there's so many problems with that. We don't have time for that right now. There's so many issues with that. Oh my God. But we don't focus enough on it. So I just come in and I help women, really remember who they are and what it's going to look like and prepare them as best I can. And even with all of that, sometimes things will still not be, completely status quo. It doesn't mean that it's a foolproof method for them not to have PPA or PPD or anything like that. But if I can help in any way and I can provide that sort of stable groundedness and facilitate it, then I did my job. And I
Mm.
hope every time I come in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I tell people that like every birth, even like all births, they're deeply traumatic, right? Your basketball comes out your vagina or comes out your belly. So
Yep.
either way, there's
Yeah,
healing process, and I feel like that is just sort of swept under the rug as far as like how other people deal with women who've just given birth, and also for the women themselves. Like I should just be able to snap back, especially if they have friends that, were playing tennis the next day or something insane.
yeah,
But there are women that do that, right? So
sure,
so holding yourself up to unrealistic standards, understanding you need to step down and allow your body to heal. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up, that your conversation made me think of, is that a lot of mothers, including myself, really had an identity crisis after giving birth, because a lot of times that is now your new identity. You're the mom of so and so, you're the boy mom, you're the girl mom, or you're the mom of three kids, or your mom whatever, and that is it. You are not the, for me, flying trapeze artist. You are not the entrepreneur. You are not the fashion designer. You are not the toy designer. You're not any of those things. You're just the mom, right?
mm,
And maybe you're also the housewife. You could be that too. So
right,
and
right.
that in our society I don't think is valued either, right? So all of that's really difficult. So I really responded to what you had to say.
Oh, I'm glad. And I did want to say too, I think that, oh God, I hate the I'm just a mom. I
Yeah.
that phrase hurts me so much because th- like we're talking about somebody who's making a human from scratch, just from nothing. Just and it's fascinating to me every single time. And then feeding that baby through their body, birthing that baby through their body, and then being responsible for them for the rest of their lives, but especially in those first 2 years. The connection between mom and baby in the first 2 years is vital, right? So we have all of these things that we're doing, and people will say, well, she just had kids. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
She doesn't get a trophy. I hear this all the time. She doesn't get a trophy because she went unmedicated. She doesn't get a trophy because this. I am so sorry that the trauma of your own life and your own experience causes you to project onto women who maybe enjoy motherhood or who are struggling and who want more help. When people will get on the internet, and this is so important, and I have to say this, if you are listening to this and you are thinking about having kids, you are pregnant right now, and you see any of that, please know, and this is just from the bottom of my heart, that is coming from projection from miserable older women who forgot what it was like to be a mother of a newborn. And I will call this out. I call it like it is. That is straight projection when you forget that you also were a mother for a lot of women. And a lot of the times, this doesn't come from men. This comes from the older generation of women. And they will comment on things and they will say these nasty things to new moms. I am imploring you to not listen to them because all they're doing is projecting their own insecurities of what they didn't get to have onto you because they're upset that you get to have it. And it's very important that you hear me when I say that because misery loves company. Misery loves company. So I just had to add that because of what you said. So sorry
Yeah.
for the little tangent on that one, but clearly that's a passion.
So how do you practically bring Ayurveda into your postpartum work? And can you give us some examples of rituals or foods or tools that you use with clients?
Yeah, so pretty much everything I do is through food and is through touch. That is my two main, I think, ways that I bring Ayurveda into that work. I never go in and give all of these, scientific things and break down 3 years of a master's degree. I don't do that unless I have a client who knows about Ayurveda and wants to learn. And sure, then we could talk about it. But really, I come in with a lot of different recipes geared towards supporting the like I was talking about the doshas before. So I come in with food to close that space through vata. And how I do that is through a lot of grounding foods. So I use a lot of oil, specifically ghee. and coconut oil. So when I say oily, I don't want you to think that I'm telling you to go to KFC and eat a bucket of chicken.
Right.
There is a difference between healthy, good oil and ones that are good for you and the purpose behind it. I make a lot of lentils, a lot of dal, a lot of khichdi is one of the number one meals I make for a mom that just had a baby, especially if I come in those first couple of days. Very easy on the digestive system, packed with nutrients. So what we focus on is nutrient dense, oily foods, very grounding foods. So like I was saying about the raw food and the salads and the things, those are types of foods that will aggravate vata. So you don't want to be bringing anything in that's going to be airy or spacey or dry or damp or anything like that, because that's not going to serve the purpose of what we're trying to do. So I bring it in through herbs as well. So I'll bring in typically the top four that I use are nettle leaf, oat straw, blessed thistle, and fenugreek, and all of them have different properties, but for the most part, it's basically surrounded around supporting breastfeeding and milk production, and then also nervine tonics like oat straw is a nervine tonic, and it really helps with any kind of like stress that you're having. I drink it personally because I think it's delicious. But yeah, so different herbs, different properties, and I have a lot of Ayurvedic books. I'll always reference them. I'll always go back to even my own trainings and pull out some things from the ancient texts, and I will look at that and I will, reference it and call that in. And then I do restorative touch with sesame oil. So we work with sesame oil because it's quite dense and it's very good for vata. So I will warm that up, sometimes just in my hands, sometimes beforehand, and I will use that on new moms. I had a new mom who that was the only thing I feel like I wound up doing the whole time. And that's all she wanted a lot of the times. And it was so wonderful and amazing. And I usually did that for about 45-ish minutes to an hour sometimes. And it's not necessarily, I wouldn't classify it as a massage. I do say restorative touch because I'm not a massage therapist, but it is a way to just relax, and really just, you know, come out of your body for 5 minutes and just lay there, and to have someone else, laying hands on you is a very spiritual experience. And we see that throughout religious cultures. We see that throughout, so many different types of even just cultural, I'm going to edit that because I couldn't think of the word I wanted to say. Cult- I'm like cultural cultures. That's not what I want to say. We see that throughout a lot of different cultures, the laying of hands, and you'll see that in different circles and different, prayer circles, things like that. So it's very common, but again, here in the West, not common. So I really just come in and promote like an overall relaxation and an overall sense of peace, I think, around it. And that's how I do it. It's always through food.
Yeah, well, it sounds good that you're dealing with all these sensory experiences, right? So, I
Yes.
mean, not only like the nutrients that are coming into the body, but the taste and the care that you're preparing these, but then also like the massage is like also sensory experience where you've got the oil and the touch and increasing the circulation and the relaxation and all those things. Like you're not doing a deep tissue massage
Yeah.
or anything like that,
Nope.
but I would have loved any part of my body to have been massaged
Yeah.
postpartum because, like, how wonderful is that? I mean, that is just, and you feel cared for, and I think that's the most important thing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So much of your mission is about helping moms have an exhilarating postpartum experience. So, what does that look like in real life?
In terms of for moms or for myself?
I would say, well, how about both? Why not both? So,
Oh, I feel like this is an interesting question. I think for me it's all about always learning. It's always about keeping up with any type of education, any type of chance for me to learn more, to read more. The more I know, the more I can give. And so I think that's one of my biggest ways. And then I think for moms, like the way that I want them to have that experience is just by teaching and by talking. And so a lot of my work happens when I'm not even working one-on-one with clients, and a lot of it is free education that I push out on social media, and that I just talk to people all the time about, whether it's a phone call, a free consultation, content, whatever it is. Um, I think that's the biggest way, because not everybody has that experience. Not everybody has a beautiful postpartum experience. And sometimes they don't have it the first time around and they want it the second time around. Sometimes they didn't have it the first 2 times around and they know, that they want it that 3rd time. So it's really just about pushing that message out against the noise, for free. A lot of entrepreneur work, as I'm sure you know, is free, which is something that a lot of people can't grasp their minds around, I think sometimes. But, yeah, I think it's just all about learning, and then the more that we learn, the more that we can do and the more that we can give, and I think that's really what it's all about. That's just what I think life is about, outside of the work that I do, and yeah, I think that that would be my answer for that, I think.
Mm. That was lovely. So, for someone that does not have family nearby or a strong support network, what practical steps can they take to feel more supported after their baby arrives?
Oh Lord, please prep your food, please. And I know sometimes if you have a difficult pregnancy, I know, but I think my 2 biggest pieces of advice, if you don't have family and you don't have strong support, hire a cleaning lady. And you're gonna say to myself, I don't know if I can afford that. Sometimes you can find cleaning ladies to do, even and a couple of hours for $100, and you can do that even once, once every 2 weeks. Please hire a cleaning lady. That if that is one thing you invest in, please, because when you know that you don't have to worry about the dishes and you don't have to worry about XYZ, I promise you, makes things a whole lot easier. So hire them. And then I would also say to really prep as many things as you can. So obviously I'm going to promote Ayurveda because it's what I do, but there is a book called The First 40 Days, and that book has a ton of recipes for you to really prep a lot of food and for you to make sure that you have all of that. Now, in Ayurveda, we don't recommend freezer foods. We want everything to be freshly cooked. Yes, but nuance to that. We're talking about people who don't have the support, right? So we want to prep that beforehand, keep that in the freezer so you have it because you can always reheat it and then still get the nutritional benefits of it. And that's one of my biggest things, is what you're eating, because a lot of new moms will tell you they forget to eat and it's 7 o'clock and they haven't showered and there's no food and now you're eating a granola bar. And if you're breastfeeding, you need the calories, you have no nutrients, and that can deplete your supply, right? So making sure that you do a lot of research on what you need and then making sure you have that in the house. So even for certain herbs, right? Like I was saying about oat straw, nettle leaf, blessed thistle, fenugreek, fennel, have it in the house. Just make sure you have it beforehand, because you might say to yourself at 2 a.m. when you're doom scrolling on Google, Googling for the 15th time, I know you are, the baby's poop is a weird color and I think something's wrong. Should I go to the hospital? I know that's what you've done. It's okay. I know. But having that on hand when the Google search tells you have more fenugreek, now you're not terrified of, oh my gosh, I should get it, but I shouldn't get it on Amazon, so I should wait, but it's not going to come for 2 weeks. Therein lies the spiral. So being as prepared as you can and researching as much as possible beforehand and having it in the home so you can really nest in as best you can, especially without family or strong support. And you'll find also sometimes that some doulas, I mean, I offer virtual support, will offer that and, be able to kind of talk you through that or just be that listening ear and help you, with your recipes or help you with whatever. So, maybe looking for that, would be another thing that I would say as well. But trust me on the cleaning lady thing, please. Please. It's very important.
Fantastic. So, not everyone has an exhilarating postpartum experience. Some have traumatic childbirth, and others may have experienced postpartum depression. What do you recommend for these people that may help them heal and recover?
First and foremost, I would be remiss if I didn't say that getting professional help is the first thing that you should do. As a doula, and if you are a doula that's listening, there are things beyond your scope. And unfortunately, postpartum depression, psychosis, and anxiety are things outside of your scope of practice. So I am somebody who, even though I operate from a very Eastern perspective, I am also somebody that honors and understands that Western medicine is important and there's a time and a place. We overuse it. We completely throw it at everything. I don't agree with it. But if a woman is suffering from postpartum depression, there are therapists, there are centers that can help. So if you are, especially if you're in the New York City area, all of my information is going to be in the caption of this. Please reach out to me because I have a ton of resources and a ton of people. please get the help that you would need, because sometimes it is something like a little bit of medication to help you while you are healing, while you are going through that. So that is truly my first piece of recommendation. EMDR therapy is really helpful if we're talking about a woman who had a baby 6, 9, a year, 2 years ago, things like that. And she is suffering the effects of that. EMDR is absolutely amazing for working through trauma, and really telling your story. I would also recommend even looking up a lot of support groups. There are a lot of different support groups of women who get together just to tell their stories. And you will find healing in community, healing with other women who have gone through it, and you just getting to say, I went through this traumatic experience, and for somebody else to look at you and not say, it's okay, you're going to get through it, but the baby's healthy. You have other women looking back at you and saying, oh, I totally understand. And that can just, that, even as I said it, it's like my shoulders dropped, right? Like that is that healing, that like, oh my God, I feel so seen. Sometimes that's what we need, sometimes that's what moms need. So that is 100% what I would recommend. And I'm somebody who is very aware if a mom is having any kinds of signs, symptoms, anything, I will immediately refer out. Um, because it would be, disingenuous of me to continue to pretend like I can deal with that. I can't. I can be there through it, but I can't be the only thing in that moment. So again, it's about the collaborative experience, especially with something like that. 100%.
Yeah, and then people who experience it really need to know that they're not alone. I think that,
Absolutely.
you know, that's the isolating part of childbirth, and being a mom, is it also does feel very isolating, especially if you don't have family in the area that are going to be over at your house, and you don't have friends that have children of the same age at the same time. Like, it can feel very lonely and isolating, and then you feel like everything you experience is you're the first person to ever experience it, and so you have no one to talk to about, because your husband's certainly not going to understand. And
Yeah. So,
yeah. Anyway, so
yeah.
you also support doulas and nannies in building sustainable, burnout-free careers. So why is that part of your work just as important?
Oh my gosh. Well, for starters, doulas burn out within 1 to 3 years.
No
We know
way.
this. So doulas don't really last because it's a lot of energy work. It's a lot of one-on-one work. It's a lot of one-to-one clients. Even with nannies, you can burn out pretty quickly, especially if you're not with the right family.
Mhm.
Reason that this is so important is because the same way that a family is interviewing you, you are interviewing them. And when we're younger, I'm in my 30s now. I apparently have all this wisdom from doing this for 100 years. When we are younger, I know this was true for me, I was chasing the money. I was going after who was going to pay me the most, who was going to, give me the most perks, whatever it was. That burns you out very quickly because people who pay you the most oftentimes demand more of you. And if
Mhm.
you are not in a place in your life where you want to take that on, you will burn out within a year. You'll burn out within 6 months. I can't tell you how many jobs I had in my early 20s that I worked for 3, 4 months. And then I would say, I don't want to do this anymore. And I would pivot, and then I would try some online business. I sold essential oils. I did this. I tried everything because I thought that it was the work. It wasn't the work. It was the system. And now that I'm doing this, one of my biggest focus points is really focusing on how you can take on clients that pour into you in a lot of ways, right? They pour into your soul, and you leave feeling better. You leave feeling, more joyful for your career and what you do, versus leaving and feeling absolutely exhausted. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to be tired. Let's be realistic. You're going to be tired. Life is, you work. I do overnights now as a postpartum doula. I have an overnight tonight. I'm doing one again tomorrow night, but I always leave, even though I'm tired, I leave feeling so, just my cup feels so overflowed because I'm with the most amazing family and the most dream client. But that came from learning the types of clients that I didn't want to have. And I took on clients that I knew from the beginning, your gut never lies, that were not good for me. But I said, oh, but I'm just starting out and I want the client and I want the money and oh my gosh, the experience. And it wound up not being a good fit on either end. And that's okay. That happens. Obviously, you don't want that to happen, especially in postpartum because she's already going through so much, but it does happen. And you deserve to be respected as well. I think also why it's important because nannies and doulas tend to think that when they take on clients, you are a servant to the people that you work for. And that is not true. You are absolutely worthy of respect, basic respect. You are worthy of feeling like you are enjoying your job, and you're worthy of saying, no, I don't do that. I had a client once where there was something that was going on where I was like, this isn't what I do. This isn't part of what I do. Like, I don't do XYZ. And again, it just wasn't a fit because there was a misalignment, I think, on their end. I think it was just not, it just didn't work and it's all good. But you can say no. I think we often think that we can't because we're helping, right? We're in the service industry. So you can't say no because you're servicing. That's not true. So I really put an emphasis on that. And I am teaching that in my course, Nurturing New Beginnings. It's a full Ayurvedic course for doulas and moms alike to help you learn all of the things about Ayurveda, everything there is to know about postpartum from an Eastern and Western perspective. And if you're a doula, it also teaches you a lot about how to have a business and what that means and how to conduct it and how to start it and all of these things that we're talking about. So, yeah, there's so much that goes into that, but it is so utterly important because we will burn out 100%.
Mm. Yeah, I'm shocked at how short of a lifespan that can be for the people and who have that career. That was really surprising.
Yeah, it's usually surprising when I tell people this because they think, you hear about midwives being midwives for, 20 years or 25 years, and it exists, certainly. I'm sure there are doulas out there who have been doing it a very long time. But especially now, I think with social media, with the ability to reach 100,000 people in 25 seconds, we have a much wider reach than we ever have. And so with that, we are able to do a lot more and you're able to monetize that. And a lot of people, they feel how they feel about it, but it's just the truth. You can monetize a whole lot, which means if you can make money in one way, and this is my entrepreneurial brain, you're making money in one area, and then you get to make money through actually working with people that you want to work through because you're making money in different areas. And that's the life of an entrepreneur. And really, if you are a doula, by nature, you are an entrepreneur, unless you're working with an agency, which I am starting an agency for this specifically. Which will be up and coming in the next couple of months, God willing. But yeah, for the most part, you're an entrepreneur if you're a doula. You're marketing yourself, you're out there, you're putting yourself on websites, you're on social media. So you really need to understand what that means because I think that that's also part of the burnout too. We're exhausted because now we're wearing every hat. And as someone who does a lot of things and is an entrepreneur, you understand your finance, your creative, your advertising, your HR, your everything, your CEO, CFO. And it can be exhausting if you don't have the right type of system to do it. So I really want to put an emphasis on that from, the back end, business perspective for sure.
If someone is listening, is pregnant or preparing for postpartum, what is one Ayurvedic practice or mind shift you would like every mom could know?
Please lay down. Please, please just really rest. Take this time in your life to enjoy. It will never come around twice. You will never have your first baby twice. It'll never be your first time seeing them do the newborn scrunch twice. You will never be up at 2 a.m. the first time you ever did without any other children in the house. And this necessarily isn't Ayurvedic. I know that that's what you said, but that's really where my mind went. I think from an Ayurvedic perspective, I will say make sure all of your foods are warm. That's a very big thing in Ayurveda. Keep your feet warm. Socks, always. If you wash your hair, dry it immediately. Don't walk around with wet hair. We don't want to invite any type of cold. This is also really prevalent in a lot of different cultures, Chinese cultures, for prime example. Staying cold is actually the number one thing to be avoided. There is an incubation period in Chinese medicine of about 30 days where women won't wash their hair. So they keep it braided, they keep it oiled, whatever it may be. But this is happening in other parts of the world. So number one, always dry your hair immediately if you do choose to wash it. Keep socks on at all times. And also just keep your food really warm. Use a lot of ghee, use a lot of coconut oil, stay away from raw vegetables, salads, smoothies, anything damp, anything cold. Really focus, like I was saying, on that earth and water. And then I think from just an everyday perspective, remember that everything that you're doing is right because you're the mom. And your maternal instinct does not need to be outsourced. You don't need to pay someone else to tell you what you're doing is right. Whether you want to breastfeed or not, whether you want to co-sleep or you don't, whether whatever it may be, that's on you because your maternal instinct exists within you for a reason. That's there for a reason. And mine and yours are completely different. But as women, we have that. It's the same reason why in a room full of people, if a child screams mom, every woman in the room will turn around, whether they have kids or not. You immediately go, that is what that is. So my advice to you is really lean into that and stop letting the world and doctors and this practitioner and this consultant and that sleep trainer and this one tell you what you're supposed to do for your baby. You know that baby better than all of us, even me. I tell people all the time, I'm like, don't take my advice, which is probably horrible, but it's true. I don't know more than you do when it comes to your child. I can only tell you from a scientific perspective. I can tell you from, just experience, but that's your baby. And so pick your baby up. Hold your baby when they're crying. Love them. You never get that chance again. They are literally newborns for 5 minutes and then you go to sleep and you wake up and they're 6 months old and then they're in high school. And that's how it happens. And I have 25 nieces and nephews. I can attest to this. So please just take the time to, I think, enjoy and focus on, you as well and honor that transition from maiden to mother.
Yeah, amazing. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. So tell us how we can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so I am on TikTok and Instagram as the Holistic Doula, and that's WHOLE istic, ISTIC, doula, all one word. You can message me through there. It's just me, so I will be responding to all of that. And also, I did want to offer to anyone who's listening to the podcast that if you did want to get Nurturing New Beginnings, still at the pre-order price, you can get it at 25% off just from listening to this podcast. And the code is podcast25, the number 25. And that's all one word. And you can find the link for that, I'm sure, in the caption below, in the bio, and then also through my social media. It's always in the bio of that as well.
This is amazing. Thank you for your time today. And I know that you probably made a very big difference and somebody's postpartum experience.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I'm so glad you had me on, truly.
Yay. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into A Parent's Guide to Child Development, where we decode milestones, demystify meltdowns, and occasionally question whether goldfish crackers count as a food group. Spoiler, they do. Make sure to follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an expert tip, breakthrough strategy, or aha moment that can make a big difference in your child's development. It's cheaper than therapy and less messy than glitter slime. We'll be back soon with more expert advice, real talk, and zero judgment. Until then, keep calm and try not to step on any Legos.